Welcome to the annual MySiyum, this year in honor of and Le'iloi Nishmas Azi Koltai. I want to start with a story. A few years ago, I was in Israel running a trip for Jewish fathers that didn't have the opportunity to have a traditional Jewish education. So they were connecting or reconnecting to the Jewish heritage. And a handful of them had never had a bar mitzvah. So we decided these guys are going to have a bar mitzvah. Not only are they going to have a bar mitzvah, they're going to have a bar mitzvah at Masada. So we climbed Masada at sunrise, brought a Torah up to the top, went into the shul, synagogue, but we had a problem because each guy was going to get an honor, and we danced after their honor. One guy would open the ark, and one guy would take out the Torah, and three guys would get called up to the Torah, and then one guy would lift the Torah, and one guy would wrap it, and one guy would bring it back. The problem was that none of the guys were a Kohen. Every Jewish male is either a Kohen or a Levi or a Yisrael, depending on what his father was. None of the guys was a Kohen. And there's a rule. If there's a Kohen in the synagogue, he has to get called up first. So what are we going to do? We need three guys to get called up. None of them are a Kohen. So here's what we did. We gently explained to each one of the Kohanim, some of them were the Jewish fathers on the trip, some of them were the support staff, that you need to be outside the synagogue during the Torah reading because of this rule, because we want to call up the bar mitzvah boys, but the rule is that if you're in the room, we have to call you up. And they understood. So I said to one of the fellows who was on the support staff, who was a Kohen, who was going to be going out, I said, look, I don't want you to just stand out there. It's bad enough that we're kicking people out of the room. Do a class for them. He said, what kind of class? I'm not one of the educators. I said, you're a Kohen. I don't know. Do a class about what it's like to be a Kohen. He said, okay, fine. All I want to do is figure something out to occupy their time while they're outside the room. So we do this. We have this wonderful bar mitzvahs, and we dance, and we sing, and the Kohanim are outside the room doing I don't know what. That night, one of the guys on the trip, one of the Jewish fathers who was a Kohen, comes over to me. And he says, with tears in his eyes, I can't thank you enough. I said, for what? He said, for this morning. I said, for what this morning? He said, for that class that fellow did for the Kohanim. I said, well, what did he do in the class? He said, let me explain something to you. I have not been in a synagogue since my bar mitzvah. And I want to go, but I know that I'm a Kohen. And I know that sometimes the Kohen has to bless the congregation, and I don't know how to do it. And I don't know when they bless, so I'm scared if I show up, they're going to say to me, oh, this is the day you bless. Oh, you're a Kohen. Get up there and bless. And I don't know how. So I won't go to synagogue. So he gave us a class and taught us how to bless. Now I know how to bless. When I get back home, I can go to a synagogue for the first time since my bar mitzvah. All I was trying to do was occupy his time. And here he's going to be able to go to synagogue again for the first time in decades. So why am I telling you this story? Because this is a story about a guy who had a burning, yearning desire, but he was uncomfortable. And that's what Masorah is all about. Masorah is all about giving Jews who have a burning, yearning desire, but who might be a little uncomfortable, an opportunity. You know what we just did across the street? I'll bet that there were quite a few people across the street an hour ago who for the first time in their lives walked into a synagogue for a chavrusa, to meet a study partner, to study a page in the Talmud. And I'll bet that there were a number of people who an hour ago who may have had 1,000 chavrusas, who go every day, maybe twice a day, into the synagogue to meet their study partner, to study their page in the Talmud, but who for the first time today studied with someone who was a newcomer, who was sitting in front of a page of the Talmud for the first time. And that's what Masorah is all about. Listen to some of these numbers. These are 2021 numbers, so of course they're only going to grow year by year. Last year, 1,981 hours of Torah learned via Masorah. 359 different young Jewish professionals attended events. 111 of them were regulars who attended at least 5 events. 1,188 one-on-one learning sessions, and 953 meetings between young Jewish professionals and Masorah staff. And the other reason that I'm sharing this with you, and what's so appropriate, this shidduch, this connection between Masorah and the Siyum and Ozzy Koltai, is that that's what Ozzy was all about. Because in the Koltai home, Rob and Sue's home, during Ozzy's lifetime, they hosted not dozens, I'm sure hundreds of people who were there for their first or second or third Shabbos meal. There's nothing that Ozzy enjoyed more than connecting with them, talking to them, studying with them, and sharing with them his infectious enthusiasm for the Torah and for Judaism. So I have no doubt that when he was watching what was going on across the street, he was crying tears of joy up in heaven. And I want to thank each one of you for making sure that the flame of his soul burned a lot brighter tonight. We're going to go to the videotape now to watch a video, and then we're going to get to hear from Masorah's director, Rabbi Yehoshua Lewis.
Being Jewish and not giving the text and the Torah a chance is crazy. And it's something that I waited till I was 32 to start doing.
I don't know how I got set up with such a great chavrusa. We just get on Zoom and then we jump right into it.
After every session with Jay, he just has this glow that surrounds him.
Eric is a lot like me, works hard, he has a family, and he still makes time to learn twice a week, sometimes 2 hours, sometimes 3 hours or more.
Because of Jay, I made a siyum on Mishnayos Brachos. The two of us made it together.
It's amazing to have somebody that I could text or call if I have a question, and he's there for me.
There is no mitzvah in the Torah of kiruv. It's just another form of chinuch, of teaching Torah.
I've known the Lewises since before Masorah was born.
Rabbi Lewis has played a major role in Eric's entire journey to Judaism.
I met up with Rabbi Lewis after a trip to Israel. I became more interested in Judaism. The rabbi sets you up with different people to learn.
There are times when his chavrusa stumps him, but Eric likes that because he's being challenged.
I literally went from doing nothing to praying every single day, reading the actual text and seeing it in person. That's what really changed my life.
Rabbi Lewis and I were at shul, and Rabbi Lewis comes over to me and he's like showing me his phone. He got this message from Jay.
And it said, "Dear Rabbi, thank you so much for pairing me up with Eric. He has so much knowledge about Judaism, and he went from not doing anything to incorporating more mitzvahs in his life. He was just so appreciative of that."
I thought, hey, why is he thanking me? He should thank the guys who learned with me years ago.
Eric had mentors that he was learning with, and now he has a chavrusa that he is mentoring.
Students have gone through our program, they've reached a certain level of Torah learning, and now they just want to spread it, they want to share it.
What they did for me, I was able to pay it forward.
Here tonight and celebrating this beautiful, beautiful Siyum. People coming from Cleveland, from Israel, from Brooklyn, from Baltimore, Silver Spring. Unbelievable the turnout. People come to celebrate Torah learning, and really a tribute to Ozzy and to the Koltais as well. I want to share with you a Gemara in Kiddushin Lamed Aleph. The Gemara says that Rav Yosef, who was blind, said that originally, there's a famous debate about whether blind people are obligated in the mitzvahs or not between Rabbi Yehuda and the Chachamim. And Rav Yosef said that originally, if you would have told me that the halacha is that blind people are exempt from mitzvahs, I would have made a party for you, because hey, I'm not obligated in the mitzvahs, and yet I'm still doing it. I'm still doing the mitzvahs. I'm going to get a great reward for that. And then I heard the teaching that one who is actually obligated receives a greater reward than he who is not obligated. And after that, I wanted the halacha to go in accordance with the opinion that a blind person is indeed obligated, is indeed chayav in the mitzvahs. So the question is, how do you understand that? It would make much more sense to say that, if you're not obligated, you get a much greater reward. If I don't have to clean the room and I clean the room, I'm much greater than if I had been obligated to. No? And the idea is found in the idea of achrayas. If you understand achrayas, responsibility, what responsibility is when you accept upon yourself a commitment, it magnifies the action that you do. It's not just one point in time where you're performing something good, you're doing a mitzvah. Every point in time leading up to it, from the time that you made that commitment or you fell into that obligation, and then you actually did that mitzvah, now it's one big giant mitzvah leading up to that point. And that is the idea of achrayas, that is the idea of gadol hametzuva ve'osa yoser, because it's a much greater, much more impactful, an action with much more gravity when you actually do it, having committed to it beforehand and taken upon yourself that obligation. The very Masechta of Kiddushin spells that out. We know that there is a mitzvah of Kiddushin, of betrothal, and there's also a mitzvah of Nisuin, when the couple actually gets to live together. What is the idea in that? The idea is that you're making a commitment with the Kiddushin, you're consummating it with the Nisuin. Commitment is a very prime value when it comes to Torah. In Sinai retreats, where I've been going for the last 20 plus years, that's a very big deal over there. They emphasize commitment. And people sometimes, they're scared off by the rabbi, what if I commit and I'm not able to keep it? And the answer is always, when you make that commitment, that makes you a much stronger person. In halacha, it's actually ma'akev in some situations. It actually prevents you from doing the mitzvah. And when it comes to the laws of a tainus, of a fast, it says that kol tainus shelo kibel alav b'shas mitzvah eno tainus. That if you did not accept upon yourself and commit to making that fast in the morning, it's not a fast. So if you wake up in the morning, you're not hungry, you skip breakfast that day, and comes lunchtime, you say, hey, you know what, let me just do a tainus. Let me do a fast for, maybe some sins that I've done. Sorry, doesn't count, because you lacked the commitment leading up to that mitzvah. The Koltais, I've known them for over 15 years. Back in 2006, I think I called them, and they hosted a Shabbaton for us back in the early days when I was a young rabbi. And they were unbelievable. Their care for everyone, their commitment, willing to go that extra mile to host these lavish, home-baked Shabbos onegs in their house till the wee hours. They did it, and they did it with love. That's achrayas. Their involvement in this community for many, many years, with the Clifton Cheder, with Tomchei Shabbos, with so many organizations and constant kiruv groups walking into their house. It's really unbelievable, and it's a testament to their achrayas. And achrayas, the word achrayas, responsibility, it comes from the word acher. someone else, other-directed. Just like you have the word in Hebrew, panim is inside, panemius is innerness, ruchni is spiritual, ruchnius is spirituality, achrayas can be learned as acherius, other-directedness. And that's what exemplified them, and that certainly is what exemplified Azi. Here is Le'ili Nishmaso, that his neshama shall have an aliyah. That's just this interest in other people, this care and this love for other people. And it really is a testament to the entire community of Passaic for being such amazing hosts over the years. To so many Baalei Tshuva have kind of walked through their doors. I'll tell you one story about one of our students who benefited from it. Mali Dad doesn't sound like a Jewish name. And the reason it doesn't sound like a Jewish name is because for 22 years of her life, she grew up a devout Christian. She was a part of her church choir, and she was actually a very frum, devout Christian. Her mother passed away at the age of 22 when Molly was 22. And Molly was looking for answers, and she asked her Jewish cousin, Barbara, she was a very distant cousin who happened to be Jewish, she asked her, what does Judaism have to say about death, bereavement, mourning? And Barbara said, the truth is, I don't know. I'm not really versed in the Jewish texts, but I go to a garage sale once a year run by Mrs. Pick, and in a town called Passaic, New Jersey, there's a lot of religious Jews. I think you might find some answers over there. So Molly goes to the garage sale, and she starts talking to a woman, Elaine Tuckman, and she asks her, what does Judaism have to say about mourning? What's the Jewish take on it? And Elaine could have just said, well, here's a website, go ahead, say ulamad, and be done with it, but she didn't. She had that achrayas, she had that acherius, and she asked her, well, are you Jewish? And so Molly says, no, I'm not Jewish, but my cousin is. She said, wait a minute, your cousin is Jewish, so how are you Jewish? And yeah, sure enough, the end of the story, the mother's mother's mother was indeed Jewish, and I know for sure that was the case because I checked it out, because I'm going to be performing Molly's wedding this summer, Meretz Hashem. She's going to be marrying Guy Dor, nice Israeli boy, and they're going to have a religious ceremony, and she's learning about the mikvah, and she is committed to raising a Jewish family. After that garage sale, she went on to Israel with us on our Israel trip, and after that point, she committed. She said, "I must find a Jewish guy. I must start a Jewish home." But all of this was set into motion by this concept of achrayas, of acherias, of looking beyond yourself, looking at other people, seeing not just what they ask you, but what they actually need. That is the root of kiruv. It says that Aaron HaKohen, the first reference to kiruv in the Mishnah that we find, is Aaron HaKohen was oev es habrios umakaravan l'Torah, that the prerequisite for kiruv is oev es habrios, loving other people, being other-directed. That is the essence of kiruv. That's what the Koltais exemplify. That's what Masorah we are trying to do and trying to bring people closer, and it's only with that love that we can do so. Thank you again for coming. Meretz Hashem, we will celebrate many more simchas and many more Jewish siyumim. At this point, I would like to call upon two examples of Jewish achrayas. The first is my dear friend Hananya Rosenblum. I've known Hananya for many years. Hananya is someone who's a very busy guy. He's an example of someone who takes of his time. He has a law firm. He has traffictickets.com, and he's very busy, but he finds time to always have his hand in kiruv, in reaching out and spending his free time teaching others who may not have grown up with it. He staffed over 20 Jewish kiruv trips, and Meretz Hashem Hanan, you should do many more. And I'd also like to introduce his chavrusa, Remy Janko, who I've known for about 6 months. And Remy is the other end of it. Remy is the guy who is looking. He's looking for answers. He's deeply searching it. And there's a fascinating story. Every time I pair someone up and the chavrusa goes well, there's always an element of siyata d'shmaya, of divine providence. And we're going to hear a little bit more about that right now.
After you, sir, please.
Okay, good evening, everyone. So, in our daf and Kedushin, lo and behold, a lot of the daf focused on the issue of Peri Ben. So, we started talking about it, and lo and behold, I asked Remy, I said, tell me about your family. Are you the firstborn? And he said,
I'm a firstborn male, and I have not had a pidyon haben.
So long story short, by the end of the daf, we reached the conclusion that Remy is going to be having a Peri Ben. We actually wanted to do it this evening, but time was a little short, so we're not going to do that. But I'll let you share some other reflections.
Sure. So, hey everyone, I'm Remy. Pleasure to be speaking in front of all of you tonight. Rabbi Lewis really undersold how many people I'd be speaking in front of, but hey, we're here. Okay, so yeah, I'm from a traditional Jewish home, not overly observant, not like very learned, but I had the pleasure of being introduced to Rabbi Lewis about 6 months ago. And I think one thing that Harry was saying earlier that's really amazing is Masorah has just like presented a lot of opportunity for me in really searching after learning more about Judaism and that journey for myself, and having a very strong support system in doing so. So I have had the opportunity of going on trips to Miami, speaking to Rabbi Lewis and Rabbi Moti on a regular basis, just learning what Judaism is for me and what it will be for me in my life and hopefully family one day. And then very serendipitously with Adam, we had the opportunity to learn together. And it was pretty amazing that the passage was so relevant to my life. And I don't think that I would have had this opportunity otherwise. So very thankful for it. And it's going to be amazing. Yeah, I'll let you all know when it is and we can party.
And by the way, by the end of our second session, we discovered that his father is also a Bechor.
Yeah.
So now we're going to go for a double.
Yeah, exactly.
So first of all, congratulations to everybody here, especially those that have completed your first daf ever, including Remy.
Yeah.
And I just want to say that we've seen, and some of us have participated in events like the MySiyum Hashas, 90,000 people, freezing cold weather, gathering in a stadium for what? What's the magic of the daf? And there are many answers, but I think one of the answers is that it's really about the commitment, kavei itam la Torah, and the regularity. So I just want to mention very briefly that one of the Masorah programs that I've merited to participate in since December 2020, I can't believe it's been this long, I had to look back, is a program called Steig. Once a week on Thursday evenings, a number of people get together to learn b'chavrusa, to learn in partners, and it's been an incredibly beautiful thing. I also want to give a special shout out to Scott Weinblatt, my chavrusa from Steig, who could not be here this evening, but I just want to say the beauty of the regularity has been that even in the weeks that officially Steig has been off for any reason, whether it's a holiday or something of that nature, we have made our own time to get together because Scott has shown the importance of the regularity of learning to him. And I do think that that's something that's just an incredible gift that we have seen through Masorah, is the ability to connect all of us together in Kavei Itam La Torah, having a fixed time to get together and connect to our beautiful heritage. Thank you, Masorah.
Thank you.
I want to share a fun fact with everybody. Rabbi Lewis told me, I couldn't believe this statistic, 500 people threw their names in to be the MC tonight for this event. 500 people. And I want to share with you why I was chosen. Obviously, it had nothing to do with looks. It was not because I wrote the biggest check. It was because I have a relationship with Ozzy's father, Rob Koltai. want to tell you a little bit about that relationship. Rob is a longtime friend. Before he and his wife Sue and their family moved to Israel, they lived around the block from us, about 8 houses away. And Rob called me one day, it's around the fall of 2015, and he says, "Are you home?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "Let's go for a walk." I said, "Rob, we're guys." He said, "No, let's just go for a walk." I said, "Rob, guys don't go for walks. We go for beers, we play golf, we watch ball games, we don't go for walks. Like, I'm not your wife, okay? Maybe Sue wants to go for a walk." He said, "Come on, let's go for a walk." I said, "All right." So Rob shows up, knocks on my door, and we go for a walk. I said, "Okay, Rob, so what are we walking for?" He said, "I just wanted to talk to you." I said, "Okay, sure, what's the topic?" He says, "Your oldest son, Moshe, he's studying in Israel, right?" I said, "Yes." Thinking, I can't figure out where this is heading. He says, "Did he start dating yet?" I said, "No, but I think he's about to start soon." He said, "Interesting, because my oldest daughter, Sarah, she's also in Israel, and she's also about to start dating." I said, "Really? I'm wondering where this is heading." So it turns into the scene with like Rocky and Adrian at the Tiger Cage in the Philadelphia Zoo. He says, "So I was thinking maybe him and her maybe could meet, and maybe, So I came home, told my wife about this interesting walk, and we did our due diligence, as we do in our world, and decided that it's actually not a bad idea. And so sure enough, my son Moshe, Rob's daughter Sarah, they met in the lobby of the Waldorf in Jerusalem, and within months they were engaged, and within months they were married. It was back in 2016, and now, thank God, Rob and Sue and I, and my wife and I share 3 beautiful grandchildren in Israel, with a 4th on the way, B'li Ayin Hara, Mirza Shem soon. And so they're not just good friends now, they are mechutanim. That's a Hebrew word for which there's no English word. It means our children are married to each other. But a year ago, Lag BaOmer, they became more than just friends and mechutanim. They became mechayavim. I don't want to explain what I mean. The sages say that there are certain people who obligate us, certain people who give us certain powers. So for example, somebody passes away and they get up to the pearly gates and God says to them, "I see this list the accusing angels got, and it looks like you gave in pretty often to the pleasures of the flesh." And the person defends by saying, "God, take a look at me. Look how good looking you made me. How could I possibly not give in when I had all those, offers, all those temptations?" And God says back to that person, "Really? Were you better looking than Joseph, than Jacob's son Joseph? Were your temptations worse than his when his master's wife used to importune him every day to try to get him to give in, and he didn't? Joseph gave us that strength to say no." And so for those of us since last year who sometimes have a bad day, or sometimes have a really, really, really bad day, and we're tempted to say those words that we shouldn't say. We're only human. We'll say in a moment of pique or frustration or helplessness, "God, why are you doing this to me?" Are you having a worse day than Rob and Sue had last Lag BaOmer? And we look at them, and we see their resilience, and we see their backbone, and we see their rock-solid faith, their bitachon, their emunah, and we see their smiles. And they're walking, living examples. They're shouting out to us every second that they're still around, and they should have many, many, many years, till 120 of being around. Shout out that we don't always know why God does things. Everything he does is for the best, even if we don't know why. And we trust him, and he loves us more than anyone. And so it's really an honor to call up, and I'm looking forward, as I'm sure all of you are, to hear Rob reflect about Ozzy. Rob Koltai.
Wow, Ari, you, as always, are very difficult to follow. Beautiful words. I have some prepared remarks that I'm going to read, but I first wanted to say it's just amazing to see the outpouring of so many people and so many friends from here and far, near and far, that are with us. It means a lot to us that you're here. This event exactly typifies what we wanted to get across, and we're really happy that it came together. I know that the Karusa shop that we had today was incredible. All of us really I really enjoyed it. I thought it was very powerful. I know Ozzy would enjoy it. Thank you all for joining us this evening. We specifically wanted to do an event in Passaic to acknowledge our gratitude to all of our dear friends and family in the face of a very challenging period of time. You have helped us navigate an extremely difficult year in our lives. And while it will stay difficult, the chizuk and love offered and accepted propels us forward. We chose this program with Masorah as a fitting tribute to Ozzy and a way to thank you all for your support. We have known Rabbi and Rebbetzin Lewis for the last 15 to 20 years. They came into our house on the Circle with young people from Rutgers, introducing and nurturing Yiddishkeit amongst college students. Along with their students, they have graduated to young professionals. As you can see, Masorah is thriving as they continue effective outreach. Today, we collectively will MySiyum Maseches together. This bite-sized siyum is exactly what Ozzy was about. Small acts that can go a long way. May Masorah continue to bring Yidden closer to Hashem. We hope that those present and those who participated will generously support this worthy organization and continue learning with your respective chavrusas. In preparation for this siyum, I was fortunate to learn with a young man, Russell Wexler. I think he's over there. We learned Daf 31, Lamed Aleph of Kiddushin. I think we both benefited quite a bit. I really enjoyed it. We learned 4 or 5 times on Zoom and then again today. I'm not sure if Rabbi Lewis specifically chose this daf for us, but boy, it was matim or appropriate for me. So much powerful information on one daf. While replete with a discussion of Kivud Abeim, at the end of Lamed Aleph Amud Beis, the Gemara discusses how to show more reverence and kavod, honor to your father. For example, to properly revere one's father, one does not stand in your father's makam or space for davening. Certainly, one does not sit in his father's seat at a dinner table or the Shabbos table. Moreover, one does not contradict openly his father in the presence of others, unless his father is incorrect in a Torah or halakhic issue. Kavod, or respect, is typified by caring for your father through bringing him food or drink and making sure he is properly dressed and his appearance is appropriate. This all seems relatively straightforward and something that should be easily attained. However, at its essence, we all know that Kivud Abeim is an incredibly difficult mitzvah, if not amongst the most difficult to keep correctly. Haven't we all contradicted our parents in the presence of others at some point? However, this was almost never the case with Ozzy. He demonstrated reverence and kavod both to me and my wife in both common and uncommon ways. Of course, he would never stand in my makam kavua or seat at the table. But beyond that, Ozzy wrapped himself seamlessly in what Sue and I thought were important. When Sue stressed the importance of growing fruits and vegetables, that became a passion. When I said that telling time with his second-hand watch was something he ought to know how to do, he wanted to learn to tell time with a second-hand watch. He was not demonstrative about these things. He simply wanted to show love and devotion and kavod to his parents. No one act had a greater status than another, and each had a place to be done correctly the first time. And then he would capitalize and expand on their meaning. For example, Sue was the true Californian recycling nut. Almost every week, she and Ozzy would take all our bottles, to the marketplace and recycle them for shekels. Invariably, Ozzy would give away all of the money he earned before he left the amal to aniyim, to the poor. Sue asked, "Why don't you save some money for yourself?" And Ozzy would respond that these people need the money now, more than I need it. From an early age, he eagerly managed his own time. From the moment his alarm sounded in the morning, he quickly washed at his bedside, dressed, and carefully said brachas. He then put on his tefillin at home and would walk quietly to shul on time. He would not speak at all once he donned his tefillin until after they were completely off and zipped up back in his bag after davening before breakfast. Only then did he say good morning or boker tov. He famously knew exactly when Shabbos was weekly and was always prepared on time, counting down the minutes to Shabbos, much to the chagrin of his sisters, who were constantly on the clock to be ready on time. 5 minutes, 4 minutes, 3 minutes, he would shout out vigorously, while vigorously knocking on their doors and reminding them. My Shabbos nap was always bookmarked by the exact moment that we had agreed that Ozzy should wake me. At 3 p.m. sharp, a light knock would sound, reminding me that it was time to play ping pong or play chess or Risk, or when he was older, to sit down and learn. Even for learning, he would stay at the Shabbos table, carefully checking his watch until the absolute last moment before he needed to bench and run to a previously arranged charusa. Each act with respect and playfulness all at once. And then in retrospect, I was incredibly fortunate. When COVID happened, I was grounded mostly in Israel and had an amazing year and a half, seeing Ozzy daily, sharing breakfast and sometimes lunch, and having more time with him than I could have expected. Who could have seen that coming? We knew Ozzy from an early age. That we knew that we received matana from HaKadosh Baruch Hu from an early age. We always said it, and all of our family members knew of his unique qualities. His sisters at home in the last 2 years, Leah and Talia, were particularly zealous in guarding Ozzy's purity. We were all concerned to ensure he would continue to grow to be the gadol we already saw before us. And you know what? He did. He did grow to be that gadol. Not exactly as we expected. But not far off either. One of his skills was taking great care of those coming closer to Yiddishkeit. He was always about making others feel comfortable. No doubt he was competitive in chess or other games, but gracious and without agenda. When he saw someone needed attention, he played games. When he saw someone wanted to learn, he sat and learned with them effortlessly and pleasantly. We knew that it was easily accomplished by Ozzy because no one ever really noticed that his work he was doing was so quietly and gently making an impression on these students. He just did it. These are the little things that made up Ozzy. The fun we had together on Friday afternoon bike rides and frolicking at the beach. And at the Shabbos lunch table, he would take apple juice and pretend it was scotch and scream out, "L'chaim to the kinder, nachas for me." We all possess the power to touch others, to impact our children, friends, and worlds around us. Some do so effortlessly, like Ozzy, and some of us do so with great energy and focus. In either instance, we can act better and we can impact positively those in our worlds through smiles, a gesture, an act of helpfulness. We are about to MySiyum Sekas Kedushin. This was a collective effort, Le'uli Nishmas Elazar Yitzhak ben Ruvain, who could truly impact those around him seamlessly and lovingly. We can continue to do these small acts. We can call them micro mitzvahs, or whatever else you want to call them for yourselves. Growth comes through these small, steady, thoughtful MySiyum. We want to thank HaKadosh Baruch Hu for giving our family a matana in Ozzy. We are forever grateful for all the moments we shared. We may be grieving, but we are beaming with light, knowing that Ozzy is deeply drinking in Shemayim, learning with Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai. Meretz Hashem, HaKadosh Baruch Hu will bench us all with a geula shlema speedily, and we will all be together next year dancing and singing in Yerushalayim. Thank you all for coming.
Ozzy was, despite how little he was and how young he was a ball of untamable energy.
He didn't do anything without simcha. Like every single thing he did was with his whole heart, with his whole being. Like even when we were learning, and even when as this came home and he's tired, like he was just doing with full heart. That's what I remember. He was able to teach me when I was teaching him a one-on-one, and that personality, like, of him being able to bring out the best of people and to be like the role model, to show that he does everything with full heart, to show that I was learning from him.
So the first time I met Ozzy was at a Shabbos at their home in Har Nof. I guess he noticed that I wasn't really holding in the conversation, and he nudged me like, you want to go play a game or something? You know, I realized who he was playing for. He wasn't playing for himself. Yeah, he enjoyed games. He loved games, but he really nudged me because he realized I wasn't holding in the conversation. I was bored, so he did it for my sake. When I left that evening, I told my roommate, I told him, I was like, there's something special. I was like, I don't know what it is. I just feel like something's like special.
Ozzy was my brother-in-law, but to me he was like a younger brother. We were very close. He was so happy to see us when we came for Shabbos or during the week. No matter what time we came, he always gave us the feeling like, we always want you here. You're the best. You're so cute. You're so fun to have you around. And that feeling was always so good to get from him.
When I first met Ozzy, I just took a shot in the dark. I asked if you'd be open to learn with me. It's this 10-year-old, in my eyes, this 10-year-old kid. And to my shock, I get a phone call from Mrs. Kote saying that Ozzy would love to learn. I thought, like, finally, like, this is my first from birth chavrusa, and secondly, he's only 10 years old, so like, I'm finally gonna have someone that in my mind that I can really chavrusa with, and boy, was I wrong. I mean, to say the least, he wiped the floor with me. Ozzy was finishing his first Masechta. He started Shas when he became Bar Mitzvah. I was also almost finished with the Masechta. I said, would you mind if I made the Siyum at the same, we would make it at the same time, be a surprise, like everybody knows you're making the Siyum, then I would just get up and like make a Siyum together, we would dance together, we'd have a double Siyum. And he was so excited. The second that it was, I'm going to make a Siyum also, it's Kavod Torah, there's more Torah being learned, we're going to make more Siyumim, of course we're going to do this. That was the opposite of Torah. That's what he loved. He just plain out loved to learn.
I've known the Koltais for over 15 years, and mostly in the context of Kiruv. The Koltais are people who they just love people. Their love for people, their concern about everyone who they brought into their home was always palpable. And you really see that in Ozzy and all the people that he learned with, all the people that he cared about. He took interest in every single person who walked through their home.
It's so special to see that people will be learning in his name and to bring him up. That means his fire for Torah, it's going to continue.
It brings up his neshama. It shows that Ozzy had an actual effect on our lives. It shows that even after he passed away, he still affects us and still changes our lives and still lets us elevate us for the better.
And really this concept of the Siyum is a true embodiment of Kiruv. It's taking people who have never opened up a Gemara before in their lives, pairing them with B'nai Torah who have spent 10, 15 years sometimes in yeshiva, and all the barriers disappear when it's done through Torah. That is really the concept of the Siyum, and it's so befitting, and it's such a beautiful tribute to Ozzy.
The look that he had on his face, the excitement that he had leading up to the Siyum that he made on Masechta Brachos in our house last Purim was the most excited that I ever saw him in his life. I mean, I think it was. We have the picture of him standing on the chair making the Siyum. You see the look on his face. It was the high point of his life. That was the apex. That was the pinnacle. That was the highest point that he got to. He was standing on the chair. He made that Siyum. That was what he lived for. So to make a Siyum on his yahrzeit in his honor has to be the most appropriate thing that we can do, the best thing that we can do for him and for ourselves in terms of moving forward. This is how we can take his legacy and we can actualize it. This is how we can internalize all the messages that he taught us. We can keep him alive by making the Siyum tonight.
To quote Rob, not easy to follow that. But I want to say a few things before we call up Ozzy's older brother, Kobe, to do the Hadron on the Siyum. I'm going to share with you one more story. I have a friend. His boss is very successful. So his boss gets pitched all the time for all sorts of different wild ideas. Hey, I have an idea. You want to invest this? You want to invest in that? Sometimes he says yes. Sometimes he says no. Fellow came to him with some kind of wild idea, looking for a $5 million investment. And he listened, and he said, listen, it's interesting. I just don't see it. No, thank you. Okay, the guy said, thanks for your time. He left. The next day, he's walking down the street in Manhattan, and he sees this guy, the guy who had pitched him the day before. He says, hey, I remember you. You were in my office yesterday. He says, how's it going? Did anybody, anybody give you the money? He says, yeah, you won't believe it. I had a meeting this morning, and a guy gave me the full $5 million. He says, get out of here. A guy gave you the full $5 million? Who was it? He tells him the name. Happens to be somebody he knows. He says, so-and-so gave you $5 million? He must have seen something that I didn't see. You know what? I'll put something in. I'll do 500,000. He said, no, I already raised the full $5 million. He says, listen, you're just starting a company. I'm sure you can use an extra $500,000. He said, no, you're right. I'll take it. So he puts in $500,000. So what was this crazy idea that the guy had? The fellow originally said no to, and then just through happenstance, because God had them pass by on the street, he said, I'll put in the $500,000. He had this wacky idea. He's going to build exercise bikes. He's going to put a video screen on the exercise bike. He's going to have people do classes, and people are going to go on the bike, and they're going to watch the classes. He's going to call the company Peloton. The $500,000 investment turned into, before the recent decrease in the stock price, $125 million. Anybody want to sign up for an investment like that? Anybody? Because you've got the chance right now. Because I have an investment for you. It's called Missouri, New Jersey. And it's doing its once-a-year fundraiser. It's starting now for the next 48 hours. They're trying to raise $150,000. If they raise $150,000, Olami is going to match that. So they will have raised $300,000. There is one mitzvah in the entire Torah where the returns are guaranteed. One and only one. It's tzedakah. All the others we're supposed to do. And yes, of course, you'll get benefit in the world to come, and you'll lead a wonderful, fulfilling life down here. But there's one where God says, give charity. Test me. These are God's words. Test me if you give charity and see if I don't open the storehouses of heaven for you. You think that guy made a good return? 125 million or 500,000? It'll be a better return. Down here and up there. And there are all sorts of different levels. You've gotten the email. There are levels that start at $100. You can give less. They will take $18. They'll take $50. And it goes 180, 360, 500, 1,000. It goes all the way up to 10,000. Rabbi Lewis told me, just for the insiders here tonight, if anybody wants to give more than 10,000, he's willing to take it. Just for you guys. And so you have that opportunity. You've seen the life-changing work. The rabbis say that when you give charity, there are actually limits. You're supposed to give at least 10% of your post-tax income. You're not supposed to give more than 20%. There are people, if they get to certain levels, they have exemptions. But for most of us, 10 to 20%. But if it's to save a life, no limits. Somebody needs their life saved, no limits. You empty your bank account to save a life. When there's a terror attack nowadays, wherever it is, unfortunately there have been too many in recent weeks in Israel, and they should stop. In Israel, in Paris, in London, in New York, wherever it is, we focus in what happened. Oh my goodness, people died. Terrorists hope they get captured and meet their just end. You know where the worst terror attacks are? Oh, we don't even realize it. The worst terror attacks that occur are in the New York Times wedding section, where they make announcements. When Christensen is getting married to Cohen, and when Robinson is getting married to Schwartz, and that often spells the end of Judaism in that family. Somebody goes to a college campus now, the numbers are staggering, 4 and 5. It's an 80% chance that that person will not marry someone in the Jewish faith. They'll meet someone, they'll fall in love with that person. The person may be a wonderful person, but not Jewish. And the line's going to end there. Somebody discovers Masorah and starts reconnecting with their heritage, the numbers flip. And it's staggeringly the opposite way, the chances that they'll marry somebody Jewish. So you have a chance to save lives. You have a chance to invest in something even better than Peloton on paper before it even hits, forget the IPO. And the returns are guaranteed. So give early and give often and give generously. Thanks for listening. And Kobe, you come up to do the Hadron for the Siyum.
Just real quick before I start, I want to say thank you for everyone for coming. I know some people came from closer, some from farther. For my in-laws especially, I want to say thank you. They came from Muncie. I know my father-in-law wasn't feeling well, so thank you for coming. My brother-in-law and sister-in-law had a baby boy last week, and they had a bris this week. Baruch Hashem, baby's beautiful, healthy baby boy. And on the same day, the day before the bris, I had a levaya of someone I know. His father passed away. His father was an elderly man, and I know him enough that I decided I was going to go to the levaya. And while I was there, I remarked on something interesting, which was the first thing that someone says in the frum world, in the Jewish world, when you hear that someone has passed, you say Baruch Dein Emes, which is, thank you God, the true judge, which is a crazy thing, because for those of you who've been in the secular world, the first thing someone does when someone passes is cry, scream, get angry, yell, whatever it is. And for the first thing that a religious person do is to say is, there's only one true judge, is an incredible statement of faith, and an incredible statement of, this was supposed to happen. This is not a terrible occurrence. This is not the worst thing that's ever happened to you. This is what God wanted to happen. And then I was sitting there at the night before the bris. They do, the Sephardim do you read a whole book basically on brachas and protection for the baby. And one of the things that you talk about with the baby, one of the things that you say is, you hope the baby grows up to a life full, and you include chuppah, bar mitzvah, Torah, learning everything. And it's interesting how we view a full life as someone grows up, gets married, has kids, has a beautiful family. But when you say Baruch Dein Emes, it's not what you're saying. At the end of a life, what you're saying is that when this person passed, that means that they did what they were supposed to do. It doesn't mean they had a family. It doesn't mean they did what we view as classic milestones in a person's life. It means that they did what they were supposed to do on this earth. And Ozzy in his almost 14 years did that. One of his favorite things he used to say was he wanted to make MySiyum like me. So, thank God I've been blessed with the skill to be able to make MySiyum. I've been blessed with the skill to be able to learn. So now I'm going to make a MySiyum in my brother's honor. Hadron lach mesech kedushin, hadron chalan, daiten lach mesech kedushin, daiten chalan, and sister name lach mesech kedushin, and sister name non leba amo, Dave leba amo da asi. Hadron lach mesech kedushin, hadron chalan, daiten lach mesech kedushin, daiten chalan, and sister name lach mesech kedushin, and sister name non leba amo, Dave leba amo da asi. Hajlach is Glushim, Hajlach Land, Daitlach is Glushim, Daitlach Land, Sishin name enough, Glushim, Sishin name none, Leba Amadev, Leba Amad Asi. Here's some of Necha, the Nehinu, I was saying, State Tarskum, and Saint Blamase, who say, Mono Mabach, and I knew my papa, Rami, my papa, Nachman, my papa, Achai, my papa, Abamar, my papa, Raf, my papa, Rakish, my papa, Sukkar, my papa, Ada, my papa, Dar, my papa, Harav, Northern Island, Divorce, Russell, Befino, Fias, Amcha, Base, Shavania, and Colonel Nachnu, Tatenu, Tatenu, Amcha, Base, Shaw, Colonel Yudation. Shemach Vayne, so Sechel Shma. Maiva Tachmeni, but Sechel Kida, Lam Hili, be some Kukacha, the Manla Evash, Lam Eshach Kudecha, Kibam, Kaisan, Brokata, the Nail, and Kukacha. Amen, 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 Salva Ed, Maidam and Achman of Necha, the Nail, and Sinu, Santa Hokina, Measure based on measures like Santa Hokina, Measure Karanias. Shanu Mashkim, Vehem Mashkim, Anu Mashkim, the Vitara, Vehem Mashkim, the Vermatalim, Anu Mail, Vehem Mail, Anu Mail, Become Sucker, Vehem Mail, and Become Sucker. Anu Ratzim, Vehem Ratzim, Anu Ratzim, Chaylam above Vehem Ratzim, the Vershachas. Shnemar, Vatalihim, Tardim, the Vershachas, Anchidamu, Mirmalech, Suyumayim, Vaniav Tachbach, here time of Fanach, Adnel, High, Yishem, Tazarna, the Simon, Settles Kedushin, Cain, Tazarna, Haskell, Settles Destroyer Machim, the Simon, Lilmod, Lama, Lishma, Vashas, Chamas, Liver, Samat, Tarzech, Ava, who was supposed to call Tanaim, Miriam, Tamid Chachamim. Yamel Lila Zar Shatama Shatam Pi Umpizari, Zar Ad Alam, Vidskaim Bibis Halach Katan Chaisach, Bishach Tishmar Lacha, Vakatas Hitishaka, Kibi Yerba Yamecha, Vesiv Hoshnais Chaim, Arich Minu, Vismal Aisha, Chavoid, Adin Aizam, Maritain, and I Rexma Bashalim. It's Kadav, it's Kadash Merabah. Mahud Asla Skadasla Khaya Misail Asaka design Khaya Amal Mibna Karti Yerushalayim Shachla Hekal Begabe Mefark Bokhana and Khram and Ara. That was Bokhana Ishmael Rasa we am Kucha Brikh Makhzev Kare. Khaya Khain ve Mekhain Khayt Khabais Shaba Galos Makriv Mo Amen. Amen Heishmed Ab Mvarach Lamam Mayosh Brach Tabach Parvis Mamis Nasevis Davis Lavis Shalosh Med Chabrikhu. Elam Khab Khasvish Rosh Khasv Nakhmas Damiram Mav Mo Amen. All Yisrael, Rabban and Waltamaday, and Wakal Samaday, and Wakamandas, and right so Diba Sar, then do Hal Savasar. The Hila Hain Lachan Shamar Abakino, Vachista, Rachman, Hain Richin, Mizan Richin, Wakan Avu and the Vishmaya, Arav, and Muramain. The Hishlam Raman Shamai, Vachaim, Time, Melina, Vachaishav, and Muramain. Sashalam Ramav, Yashalam, Melina, Vachaishav, and Muramain.
whoever would like will be davening Mariv in just a moment.